my phone will ring and it'll be, a murder or suicide, like that kind of adrenaline that you get when you're on the street still comes because we don't know what we're walking into. We were able to turn a profit our first year.
Welcome to the Franchise Champion Show. I'm Alan Regala, former G1 athlete, Stanford engineer, and franchise owner who built a multi-million-dollar exit. This show is for driven people who want to find the right franchise and build a business that works for them. My guest today spent 22 years in law enforcement, retiring as a police captain in 2022. 2 years later, she opened a Bio1 franchise with her sister-in-law in Annapolis, Maryland. Let's just say it's not your typical business, and most people wouldn't last 5 minutes on the job. But for Cindy, it's a perfect fit. You'll understand why the moment she tells you what they do. Cindy Thompson, welcome to the Franchise Champion Show.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I love talking about what I do.
It is very unusual, and I'm very excited to have you on the show. We were just talking for a bit, and I mentioned that, it's been a number of years I've known about the franchise, but really never spoken to anyone there, and it's just so different than anything else, I've dealt with. But to get us started, tell me a bit about your career in law enforcement and, what did that 22-year journey look like for you?
It was a great journey. Like I said, I picked the best profession and went to college. I made a pact with my parents that in order to be a police officer, they wanted me to go to college first to make sure that's really what I wanted to do. So I went to college, got an undergraduate BS degree in interdisciplinary studies with a concentration in criminal justice. And I wanted to be a police officer. So as soon as I graduated from college, I started putting out the applications. I got hired by Prince George's County, which is a pretty large county. There's about a 1 million, little shy of 1 million population. It's right outside of Washington, D.C. Has a plethora of crime, from murder to, theft, a wide range. So my career was very expansive. I was, did patrol for 7.5 years. Then I went on to become a detective. Then I joined a task force. Then I became a sergeant, went back on the street, went to internal affairs, went back to the street, got promoted to lieutenant, was a shift commander. I was also a commander of their narcotics enforcement division for 2 years. Went back to the street as a lieutenant in a different district. So I worked 3 out of the 6 districts when I was there. So I kind of got around the county, got to know new people and learn new things. Then I got promoted to captain, and I was an assistant commander of one of the busiest districts that we have in Prince George's County, which was Hyattsville. And I retired as a captain from Hyattsville.
Wow, what a career.
So my career went full circle.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so what's interesting here to me is that you knew before you went to college, it sounds like, that you wanted to be a police officer. How did that happen?
Right after high school, I knew I did not want to be a secretary. I did not want to sit in an office. I didn't want to dress up. I didn't want to work 9 to 5. I always liked adrenaline, action. I started playing sports at a very young age. At 6 years old, I told my parents I wanted to play soccer. There was no girls' soccer team, so I had to join the boys' soccer team. And I was the only female there for 2 years at 6 years old. And, from there, I just loved it. I loved learning. I loved the discipline of it, the training, the focus. And I just kind of played sports and was a tomboy. Admittedly, I was a tomboy. I liked boy things a lot, sports and trucks and excitement and, not dresses and Barbie dolls and stuff like that growing up. So it was like it was the perfect fit. I was out jogging, getting ready for soccer season, and I see this female patrol officer just kind of drive past me. And I'm like, you know what? That would be a career that I would be really interested in. So I really started researching it, did ride-alongs. It was either military or police. I think I was just structured for that. I like the structure, the discipline, the drive that they give you and,
Wow.
The uniform.
Yeah.
Just
of course.
Everything that comes with it, it just appealed to me.
Wow. That's really cool. One that you knew so early, what it was that was attractive to you, as far as a profession, a career. And, I think for most people, at that age anyways, you have no idea. So for you to have an inkling of an idea, more than an inkling, but just, a very concrete idea of what you want to do is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And it was the best career. I will always say it went by so fast. Every time every once in a while I have to say, oh my God, I'm retired. Like I already did a career. It's crazy to me because it literally flew by for me.
Yeah, that is amazing. Well, thank you for your service. Before I forget, that's fantastic. So you had an amazing career. I mean, everything was great. What made you decide it was time to retire?
I think the atmosphere started to change in the police department. I think the politics, I would say, and the fact that my daughter was still young. My daughter was 9 when I retired, and I wanted to spend more time with her because as a police officer, there's no off days really, especially as a commander. I mean, we have to answer our phone 24/7. Our phones are on. We have to respond whenever we're needed. So being a commander, being a captain for 4.5 years, that was my lifestyle. It was, focused on work, focused on my career. And I said, you know what, I did my numbers and I had 22 years and thank God nothing seriously happened to me on the job, and that I was able to retire healthy, young enough to be able to spend time with my daughter and to do something else, to, spend the next 20, 25 years of my life doing something in addition to the first career. And, cops, they never think about that. They never think, like, when I became a police officer, I was like, this is my career. This is going to be it. I never thought I had to do a second career, that I was going to be young enough that I would have to do a second career. Because, being retired, at 48, that's just way too young. It's just, you can't just sit around and not do. I couldn't anyway.
Okay. All right. No, that's great. You got to stay busy and keep working. I love it. So how did BioOne come onto your radar?
I have to give all the credit to Cindy Thompson, my business partner. She was looking to get into a franchise. Her and my brother have 3 girls, and they wanted something to, solidify their future, to have an income, to be able to, support their girls going through college. And so she started really researching franchises. And of course it was like crumble cookie, like staging houses for real estate. And then the business coach was like, I know you probably are not going to like this, but have you ever heard of BioOne? And Nina was like, no, I've never heard of BioOne. And he was like, well, let me just tell you a little bit about it. And he goes into it and he's like, it's a crime scene cleaning. And she was like, wait, my sister-in-law is retired law enforcement. And we would talk about crime scenes all the time because I would come home from work and I would say, hey, this is what happened today. Like this person did this somewhere and this person got killed here. And, we would talk about crime scenes, but I never knew coming up in the police department who cleaned them. We never, gave out that information. We went and dealt with the crime and the investigation afterwards, but never knew who went in and got people's houses back to the way that they should be. So I was like, tell me more. So we went over the numbers and, we did a bunch of research and I said, I think this is exactly what we should do. I think it's the perfect transition from police work into this because it's a different part. I mean, we deal with crimes, but on a different level. And I still get the excitement factor, like my phone will ring and it'll be, a murder or suicide, like that kind of adrenaline that you get when you're on the street still comes because we don't know what we're walking into. So it was exciting for me for that perspective. I mean, the hoarding part, I had to get a little used to. All
right. So, okay, let's take a step back here. So, okay, we got BioOne, crime scene cleanup, murders and suicides and all those crazy things. And then the other part is hoarding. Tell me about that.
Hoarding, we do hoarding, gross filth, rodent droppings, things in people's homes that a regular cleaner will not do. They will not touch. They're like mouse droppings. No, we're out. So that's when they call us. So, I would say the hoarding is probably 80% of our business, and then 20% is the crime scene. So hoarding kind of keeps us afloat in between the calls for the crime scenes. It's just like it sounds. It's a hoarded house.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. I mean, both of these things, like I said earlier, most people, might not be up for. So I think this is it's a very special business, for people with, certain backgrounds, and yours clearly seems perfect for this. Let's go into let's start with the hoarding side of things, first of all. So can you provide an example of of the process, someone calling you for this type of job and what that looks like for you as an owner.
Yeah, it's, for an owner who is in a hoarding situation, for them to call us takes a lot of courage. A lot of times they don't want to make that call. They're embarrassed. They've shut their family out. They don't want anybody to see what they've created inside their home. So Nina will field the calls. So when the phone rings, Nina will pick it up. She's super compassionate. And, we're obviously don't judge anybody for, the situation that they're in. And we want to help whoever calls us. So if an owner calls us and says, hey, a lot of times they'll say, my house is a little messy. They don't really go into tell us that every bedroom's hoarded from the floor to the ceiling. They never lead off like that. It's I might have a little bit of a hoard or a little bit of a dirty house, and Nina will get all the information, and then Nina sends me out, and I go and knock on the door, and I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you do have a little bit of a mess in here. Yeah. So I have to kind of take the shock factor out of my face when I'm
I'm sure
dealing with
sometimes.
I have to say, before I roll up on this house, this is going to be bad. Like, I have to get it out of my system, because most times than not, it's worse than what the person says it is. I mean, I don't think anyone's ever given us an accurate description of a hoarded house unless it's coming from the county or a family member. A lot of times parents will pass away. The children will call us and say, I don't want anything to do with this house. This is, and we go and we clean it out for them. So it's, it takes a lot of courage for people to call. They don't really address that they have a problem. It's definitely a mental issue, going on with hoarding, and we don't really focus on the mental part of it. We're there to get their house back to the way it should be. And, with hoards comes trash, always insects, most of the time mouse droppings. There's always going to be a bio there. I mean, whether it's a bio from the homeowner or a bio from an animal or a critter that's gotten in the house, we know that we're going to deal with a bio every hoard that we go to. So I definitely had to get used to that.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone would.
Yeah. I mean, as a police officer, I would go, their house would be hoarded. I'd be there not very long. If I had to call social services, I could call social services, but I didn't have to touch or clean anything. So I'm definitely getting down into it now, cleaning it, which is, yeah.
So tell us. So you've gone to the house. You've spoken with whoever's there about the situation. Yeah. What happens from there? I mean, I assume you're not doing stuff on right at that time, or are you coming back? Are you doing it right away, or
no? So I'll go out. I'll look at the structure of the house, or if it's a house or a garage or whatever it is, and then I'll take pictures, get the square footage, get whatever bio I think I see, because the bio is always under stuff. So we don't get to the bio right away. It's usually when we start getting down into it, we'll be like, okay, yeah, this is where it is. I take it back, and Nina, I give all the information to Nina. She plugs it into the system, and then we give them an estimate. And then we email them or call them an estimate and say, hey, this is how much it's going to be for this hoard. This is what we need to bring with us. And then once they sign or authorize us to do it, we schedule them on the calendar. And we're usually out pretty quick. Okay.
Got it. And then who is going out and actually doing the cleanup at this time?
We're such a new business and such a small business that, for now, I'm the number one employee. I mean, Nina does the business side, and I wanted to keep Nina doing the business side. That's what she went to school for, and that's what she's awesome at. But I have had to have her come out on some of these jobs with me, which really wasn't our agreement at first. But she's such a trooper and such a team player that we've gone out and we've done jobs, and we can't believe that we're doing this. We look at each other, we're like, we did this. We look at the before pictures and after, and we'll show it to the family, and they'll be like, you did that? And Nina and I will be like, yeah, we did. So it's me, and then we have one guy that was a family friend who helps us out, and then we will get day laborers from a construction company that we've partnered with.
Okay.
So we'll get, if a house is fully hoarded, it'll be like a 4 or 5 day job, and we'll get day laborers for each day that we're out there. And that's how we've been working it. The crime scenes, it's just my brother and I. Him and I are the only ones that are trained to do it, that have the stomach to do it. I didn't know that my brother could do it at first. I kind of threw him into the fire, on our first job. But, I've seen it my whole career. like a lot of shocking things I've seen. So it's not really shocking to me. And I never really took into account, is Jeff going to be okay with this? So we went, and, the first job that we did, it was an alcoholic who fell and cut his head open and decided to go to bed and just basically bled out for hours and hours and hours. He actually didn't die. So we don't always do death scenes. It can be tragic injury, where there's significant blood on the scene. And I said, all right, Jeff, here, put your suit on, let's go. So we did it, and he did a great job, and he's been with me for everyone since then.
Wow, that's so crazy. Well, it's good that you have some in there that are not always deaths, I guess.
Right.
That's good.
Yeah.
Okay, so now on that side of the business, like, how does that typically work? I mean, who's calling you to do this? Is it the police department? Is the owner of that building or the house or wherever that is? I mean, where are you? Who are your customers?
For the crime scenes?
For the crime scenes, yes.
We have a great partnership with Crisis Response, which is a civilian and sworn section of the police department. So we're in Anne Arundel County. That's, Annapolis. That's our home base is Anne Arundel County. So Anne Arundel County and Annapolis police have awesome crisis response teams. And we've gone out, we've gotten to know them. They know former law enforcement. So they've been a really good ally for us. They know that when they call Bio One of Annapolis, that we're going to come out. I'm going to have the compassion. I'm a former police officer. I'm going to know how to handle the situation, the tragedy, the trauma, and the follow-up. We always follow up after we do a traumatic cleanup. I'm always reaching out the next day. Are you guys okay? Like, do you need anything? Nina and I stay with our customers and our clients for however long it takes, because we know that, nobody wants to be in that situation, that traumatic event. And, once the police leave and everybody leave, a lot of times they have questions. So crisis response sometimes will call us. It's usually a family member or a friend of the victim will call us. They can Google us or word of mouth, or a lot of the fire departments know us. A lot of the police departments know us. So we're kind of, getting to know in the community that, hey, Bio One went out and we did this. We did, my former agency, Prince George's County, called us last January to clean the boats after the plane crash in the Potomac. So the commander of the Marine unit didn't want her officers to have to clean that, come back to work and clean that after spending all night, doing recovery. There was no survivors. So it was all recovery mission. And they were out there, all night in the Potomac. And so my brother and I and the family friend I was talking about, Jay, we went out and we cleaned the boats. So we kind of got known for that. That was kind of one of our big things, that we're here for law enforcement just as much as we're here for civilians. So that was a great job that we got. Another great job we got was MGM. They had a murder in the food court in MGM at the National Harbor. And my brother and I went out and cleaned that up for them. So, we come out, we know what we're doing, we're professional, and that's why people are calling us. It's a trust factor. They feel comfortable with us. We don't price gouge people like these other, a lot like ServPro or a lot of these huge companies kind of dabble in this a little bit. They want to do a little bit of everything, and they just don't bring the compassion, the caring, and the aftercare or the afterthought of the situation like we do. Yeah. And that's what we want to be known for.
Quick pause. If you're wondering whether there's a franchise that fits your background the way Bio One fits Cindy's, that's exactly what I help people figure out. Book a free call with me at athletetoowner.com/ready. All right, back to Cindy.
We get called from neighbors, family members. It could be crisis response, fire department. It's kind of been namely those entities that have been calling us.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, this is one of those things that it's a much needed service. I mean, but I think probably the general public doesn't know you exist. Someone like this is here for this.
It's so hard because I'm not really selling anything. Like, I can't go to door and be like, hey, are you going to have a suicide this week? Or, are you going to hoard your house next week? We can't do those kind of things. So we have to be clever about how we do it and how we advertise. We don't want to advertise, tragic events, are great for us. Tragic events happen So we get called and we go and we do it because it's necessary. People want their houses to be back the way that they were before this traumatic event. So we know we're necessary and we're needed in the community.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we'll go and, I'll go get a sandwich and sit at a bar and I'll have the bio one and people are looking at it like, what is that? Hazmat? They're kind of a little nervous about the little hazmat symbol. And
Yeah.
so I'm like, hey, and we start to get to talking and they're like, so, what is bio one? And I'm like, we clean crime scenes. And they're like, what? And then it becomes like this big old conversation, that we continue and, hopefully they remember us, get my number. And so we kind of advertise that way. And, Google, people can Google us, crime scene near me and we'll come up too. So Google's been great for us as far as, we can't do a whole lot of advertising. It's not really the type of business you can go and advertise. It's not like a feel good. Yeah. It's a feel good after we finish the job.
Yeah.
I think it's the best feeling when we go into a house and it's so bad. You have insects, mice droppings, stuff floor to ceiling. These people don't have anywhere to sit, sleep. Bathrooms never work. Bathrooms are very rarely in working condition. And after we get done looking at it, it's a really good feeling. Like we actually went in and did this. And sometimes at the beginning, I have to shake my head. I'm like, I don't know if we can do, I don't know if this house is ever going to look okay again.
Yeah. That is really meaningful work. For, both sets of customers that you have. In my previous business at Shelf Genie, I was in people's homes, a lot of different people's homes. And occasionally we would get someone who was a hoarder, right? And it's a spectrum, and some were pretty bad. And I know some of my teammates had been in places where it was like, oh, I don't know how the installer's actually going to, where he's going to set stuff because there's just no place to put anything, right? And it can get really, really bad. And I know that after work like this has been done by a company like yours, that just clears it all out. It is such an amazing transformation, and what an amazing gift to those owners, those homeowners, because it's just mind blowing how bad it is, and then how good it can be afterwards. And I think there's a lot of tears involved in that process. There is. The before and after is just amazing, and everybody likes the before and after. If I post, we never post anything personal, never post anybody's house number or anything like that. It'll just be like a random picture. And then we do it after and it's clean. People are like, oh my God, is that the same? Is that the project you started on Monday? And it is. It's a feel good. It's the family members feel better that their loved one is going back into a habitable place. A lot of these places are just not inhabitable, and the people are still there. Yeah, it's just not safe. It's a terrible place to be. So you're doing great work. Yeah. So tell me about, so with the business itself, it sounds like you've split the business between your sister and yourself, as far as your sister's kind of more on the business side of things and you're more on the operational side of things, it sounds like. Can you tell me a bit about, how your first year went for you? Terrifying and exciting. It was like, coming from the police department where I'm told what to do and how to do it and what time to be there, it's paramilitary. So you have everything kind of laid out, to owning a franchise where it's like, okay, here you go, and never owning a franchise before. Thank God Nina had some business. She went to school for business. She owns a photography business. She's very entrepreneur. Does real estate. So she's kind of dabbled into the business world. So having that, having her help me has made this year not as terrifying as it could be. And then her having me on the operational side, like say, hey, I can send Cindy to this and it'll get done, is a great relief to her. So I think we work really well together for that. We were able to turn a profit our first year, which awesome. We were told, don't expect anything for 5 years. You're going to have to, pay back loans and do this and do that. And we actually turned a profit our first year. That's which amazing. It was exciting, and it gives us the energy we want to double it for next year. We've got like a goal that we want to do so that we can, double it for the next year and then just continue to go up. And then that's just going to be getting the word out,
talking to people, being there when people need us, forging friendships with the police departments, the fire departments, the medical examiner, all the people that kind of work in that job, description, and county workers, Department of Aging. A lot of the hoarding houses that we go to are elderly that just, weren't able to, take care of their houses anymore. And, they're kind of, they don't have a lot of family and friends, and so they're just kind of forgotten. And then somebody will find them. It'll be a medical call, where the fire department has to go, and they see the condition of the house, and then that's when we get involved, and we kind of take it from there. So that's, it was great. I love it. I love Bio One. We have great support from corporate. I have to give a shout out to Claire Bench. She's director in corporate, and she answers every text or every phone call that I make to her.
Wow.
She's mountain time. And so I'll call her. I'll be like, Claire, oh my gosh, I have this, it'd be this horrible situation. And she'll be like, you do this, 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 and this. And, so we have corporate help, which is, I don't know if too many franchises have that, but we're able to call corporate if we have a major issue. And also the Bio One community, we have like a private Facebook page, and somebody will put on there, hey, I got this. How would you guys do this? And the other Bio One owners help each other out. We're like family. Instead of being competitive against each other, we're, hey, try this, or I did this last week and it worked for me. So it's kind of, I always say the police department's a big, huge family. And I say that Bio One is a big, huge family. So I've kind of, retired from one and started in another. And that's a great feeling for me. I love always having family around me. I love the support and the camaraderie. That's always been great for me with sports, police, and now this.
Yeah, that's great. That is absolutely one of the most underrated things with franchise businesses is the community that you have to lean on each other and to share best practices and, motivate each other and, be able to work together versus, competing with each other. And I think that's awesome. I'm glad to hear that. It's a great community at Bio One.
It is. It's definitely a great community. When we went to our first HSS, I'm like, what are these people going to look like? So I always think, I clean crime scenes and clean dirty filth and hoards, and you always think, what are these other people? We're all normal looking people. We're all, love the community and love to be helpful and like to clean. And, it was nice to see a bunch of normal people that brought into the franchise and kind of don't fit the stereotype that you would put on somebody that would do this kind of stuff. I think
So tell me, what is your background, normal or unusual, I guess, for this particular franchise? What did the other franchise owners, what are their backgrounds like?
They come from, there's a couple former law enforcement owners. I can't give you the exact number, but that kind of makes sense. Law enforcement, we're used to crime scenes, kind of used to the community, and we're used to dealing with people in traumatic situations. So, and this is that. A lot of the other owners don't really have a background
just in anything,
in crime scenes or hoarding. It's just they researched owning a Bio One franchise, and the numbers look good, and the overhead looks great, and the potential to make a lot of money is there with, not too many workers. And some people don't, you don't need a brick and mortar office. You can work out of, we work out of Jeff and Nina's basement, and we work out of a van. Mm-hmm. So a lot of those things appeal to people. Some people were in the restoration business and then kind of switched over to that. Some of the owners that I know were in construction. Some just have no background in this whatsoever and just wanted to be their own boss and thought that the numbers for Bio One fit them the best. And they're happy. Every Bio One owner that we've met is extremely happy with their choice.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's great to know. And this is, I guess, another good thing about just franchising in general, that clearly for you, this was a natural fit, and your background is helping you, in this business. Not that you cleaned the scenes before, but your just familiarity is helping you. But for other people that don't have a background in law enforcement or, hoarding or crime scene cleanup or anything like that, they just come from the corporate world, and they like the numbers, and they like, what you guys do for your clients. That's fantastic that you can take someone without the background to be and plop them in and be able to get trained, by the franchisor and get the support from the franchisor and the community to be able to have a successful business in this different.
I feel a lot of those owners hire staff pretty quickly, whereas Nina and I are kind of taking our time. We went to training and Nina had to clean up blood on the training. We went to an actual hoard in Colorado and Nina had to suit up. And I think that's the first time she's ever dealt with any of that. And she did it. So, I feel like if, the owners, they go, if you really can't do it, some owners didn't do it at all. They're like, I can't do this. And they just hire a staff and the staff does it for them. And that's where I want to be. Nina and I want to have a staff where we don't have to go out I still want to go out because I still want to be connected to the community. I still want to see these scenes or these houses and, the relevance of it all. I still like that. So I'm going to continue to do that as long as I can. But our goal is to hire a staff so that I don't have to send Nina out to any of these. That's not what she signed up for. But sometimes it's definitely needed. I think Jeff is going to do it as long as he wants to because I think he enjoys it as well. It's a conversation starter. You go to a party, you go to a bar, you go anywhere, and you're like, I cleaned this crime scene the other day, and everyone wants to know about it. They want to know, how did you do that, or what happened, or do you have any pictures? We never share pictures, but those are always the questions that we get. So
sure,
I think Jeff will continue to do it with me. I hope he will for a little while longer, and then our goal is to train up a staff that can go out and just do it, and Nina and I can just be owners.
Yeah. I think that's a great goal, and for most people, that's where they eventually want to be. And so, with you having done it for a period of time now is great so that you know the ins and outs and you can train someone a lot easier.
And I could definitely say I did what you're doing. That's always a plus. When we go out on the scenes, everyone thinks Nina's the owner and the boss, and they forget about me. And I'm like, hey, I'm an owner too. Because Nina always, sets up the jobs and gives direction and she's the point of contact. So I always have to say, hey, I'm an owner too. But, I'm out there working with the guys, working and getting dirty and working just as long. Yeah. And that goes a long way.
Yeah.
When you have a staff and you want to hire and you're able to say, I did this, got in the suit and, did this for years. So, I think that goes a long way. And I think Nina's actually proud of herself that she's gotten in the suit and gotten dirty, because I think it just brings respect down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that'll be a good next phase for you guys is bringing on that help and training other people and just, coaching them, from where you're at. And I think there is a lot of respect that comes with knowing that you guys have done it before. And
it's a lot, we get a lot, we're two female, two women own business. I'm part of the LGBTQ community. And, when we go out, I feel like the female aspect goes a long way with customers and clients. Nina makes everybody feel right at home and that she cares about them. She just has that. I'm a little bit more like, what do you want? What do you need? What time do you need me there? And Nina actually, gets on the phone and shows compassion and talks to these. So when I go on the scene, they're like, you're not Nina. And I'm like, no, where do you want me to begin? I'm more like, let's get this job done. Let's get in and let's get out. And I think it's just a great dynamic. And it works for us.
That's great. All right. So you mentioned earlier you were an athlete growing up. You played soccer, maybe some other sports. How did playing sports shape who you are?
I think everything. School was definitely helpful, but the sports, the team mentality, you're only as good as or as strong as your team members, and the conditioning, getting conditioned, not just showing up on the field and playing, like actually getting yourself ready, doing the physical things that it takes to be a good athlete, I think went a long way because I still work out to this day. It's still ingrained in me and it's helped me to be able to do these jobs. I'm carrying heavy things out to dumpsters and heavy trash bags and heavy stuff like that. And, you have to be athletic to do that kind of thing. And just setting goals and achieving those goals. Mm-hmm. Sports was huge in my life. And I'm grateful that my parents were very supportive of me. At 6 years old, I wanted to play, and that's what I wanted to do, and they made it happen. And I played soccer, and then I played softball, but soccer was my main sport, and I played it all the way up to college. So I think sports makes you more disciplined, more apt to achieve your goals and not quit and not give up, and be able to mesh and acclimate into a group.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, I think that all of those are so true and so helpful when starting and running a business, especially the grit part, being able to just keep getting back up, and you're going to have some down days, but you just have to keep getting back up and keep moving forward. And those are the ones that survive and thrive.
Yeah. And I mean, I also coached as far as, with playing, I coached, and I actually coached soccer in high school. I mean, I coached high school soccer. I was out of high school. I was in college. But the coaching mentality goes very far in this business too. When you got new employees, you want to coach them, you want to, give them praise, and you want to acknowledge the good that they do. And that goes a long way too. Treating people the way you want to be treated and treating people with respect. I mean, I found that in the police department. If you do that, you're going to be a great leader. If you don't do that, you're not going to be successful. So, yeah, coaching and playing really molded me.
That's great. That's awesome. All right. I need you to provide us with one tip, one golden nugget of wisdom from you for anyone that's considering getting into franchising, starting their own business. Maybe they're in the corporate world, maybe they're, a police officer or whatever line of work they're in, but they're considering, jumping ship and changing careers. What was one piece of advice you could give to that person?
I would say do it. I would say do all the research, be your own boss. If you've worked for somebody for years and years, you're going to appreciate being your own boss and being able to do things and run things how you want them to be ran. And that goes a long way. Mm-hmm. I mean, I take what I've learned throughout my whole life, my whole career, and put it into this business. And, it's terrifying switching careers, and, you have to do your research. I would definitely tell somebody, get on phone calls with franchise owners, ask them the tough questions. What was your first year like? Would you recommend this? What were some obstacles you ran into? What are some downfalls of the job? And just kind of get all the pros and cons, and then just put your faith and do it. It's terrifying. I mean, I put my hard-earned, money into it, not knowing if it was going to be successful or if I was going to lose everything. But I would definitely tell somebody, if you're considering that, do your research and do it, and put your heart and your soul into it, and, treat your staff right, and be good with your numbers, and be disciplined.
Love it. I love it. Those are great words of wisdom. Thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining me today and sharing your story. And congrats on being a franchise champion.
Thank you so much. I hope we get to talk again soon.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Cindy's story is a great reminder that the right franchise isn't just about the business model. It's about the fit. Her background didn't just translate. It became her edge. Most people looking at franchises never think to ask, what do I already bring to the table that makes me uniquely good at this? That's the question worth answering first. If you're coming out of a career in the military, law enforcement, corporate, or anywhere else, there's likely a franchise out there that fits you better than you'd expect. I help driven individuals find exactly that. I help you cut through the noise, identify the right fit for your goals and your life, and I do it at no cost to you. Book a quick intro call using the link in the show notes, or head to athlete2owner.com/ready. I'm Alan Regala, helping you become a franchise champion. See you in the next one.